Welcome to this edition of UpFront, a monthly program produced by New Hanover County Schools. I'm Ann David. Each month here on UpFront, the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tim Markley, joins me to talk about district-wide issues, accomplishments, and programs, as well as answer questions from parents and our viewers. This month, our special guest is Dr. LaShawn Smith, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction and Academic Accountability. She sits down to discuss with us equity in our school system. But first, Dr. Markley joins me to get started with a few questions from you. Welcome, Dr. Markley.
Ann, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. We are headed into spring as fast as we can go, so the year just seems to fly by, doesn't it?
Well, by the time we air this, it'll be the first day of spring. It's when you take 17 days off for a hurricane, it sort of messes up your whole year.
It does. Now, I know the big thing is during spring break, which is coming up, there's going to be some school shuffling. Can you kind of go over that with parents? I know we may have touched on it before, but it's good to keep reminding folks.
Yeah, a couple of things that are happening. One is hurricane related, and one is bond related. So we'll do the hurricane one first. College Park was displaced because of the hurricane from its temporary location. So they've been split between Holly Shelter and Castle Hayne. We're building them a new school, but in that new school is going to finish up ahead of schedule. So it gives us the opportunity to move College Park into its brand new school over spring break. So we are excited about that. So check with the school if you have questions about that. But that'll happen when spring break, and when those kids come back, they will be in their brand new school at their original College Park location.
Okay, will parents be notified of bus changes or
Yes.
will bus schedules run the same? How will that happen?
Schedules will run the same. Sometimes might be adjusted, but the schools will definitely work with them on that.
Okay.
And our second move is Wrightsville Beach. Wrightsville Beach is the last school on our list of bond projects. They're scheduled for a major renovation. And they're actually going to occupy what is Blair Elementary School for the rest of this year and next year while we renovate Wrightsville Beach Elementary School. That will take place just like College Park over Easter break. And the principal has been communicating with both staff and parents about those anticipated changes related to that.
Okay, that's excellent. So that'll be a lot of moving.
A lot of moving.
Now, what is left in our bond projects? Is this wrap everything up?
Well, we have the middle schools, which are going through some renovations now, which will happen over this year and into next year. And then the Wrightsville Beach project, which will start almost as soon as we move out of that school over spring break. And those should all be done within the next 18 months.
Okay. And I know the Rock Church was not involved in the bond projects, was it?
Well, it was part of the bond project as a swing site for College Park. Now that will be, and we've already started work to convert that into CTEC, a home for our early college program, our vocational school there. And those students will move across the street into that building starting next year, which will allow us to expand that program considerably.
Oh, that's excellent. So a lot of changes,
in
the facilities. And this will update us. I know there's always something in the works.
Yep.
Because the schools need tweaking here and there. But
well, we'll start our next round of bond discussions probably next year.
Excellent. Does that involve possibly new schools or?
It involves definitely at least a new middle school to help with overcrowding, particularly at the north end around Laney. It involves replacing a couple of schools like we did with this one to put in some newer, safer facilities. River Lights, putting in most likely a school on that site. There's just it's a never-ending process when you're a county that's growing like ours.
Absolutely. And the next thing I'd like to bring up with you, and I know you're excited to talk about, and it was in the news recently, is the drop in the dropout rate with students.
For the fifth year, our dropout rate has continued to drop, and that is the percentage of students who drop out every year. When you look at that and our graduation rate, they sort of move in different directions. You want the dropout number to go down and the graduation number to go up, and that's what's happened with our schools. We are well below the state average. We were 1.3 compared to a 2.5 number for the state. Our graduation rate is over 86%. And that's really a credit to, I think, what happens in our schools. We have some great counselors, some great teachers, and principals who do work with students to make sure they graduate. Because when you look at being successful, you've got to have a high school diploma. It is that first rung on the ladder. And without that, it just closes so many doors.
Absolutely. And I know, of the last couple of episodes that we've had, we have discussed the options that high school students have. Do you feel the variety of options that our school system offers assists in that?
Oh,
decline?
clearly. We did a student advisory breakfast just before taping this, and it's made up of students from traditional and smaller schools. And when you talk to those kids from those smaller schools, they talk about that personalization that happens at a place like CTEC or Isaac Bear or WEX or Mosley, and what that does to keep them in schools. And some of them made that conscious choice to go to those smaller schools so they could have that kind of personalization.
Absolutely, and we have such a diverse community in our schools that gives each student a chance to, I guess, focus on what drives them to complete school. Now, before we go to break, I just wanted to get you to talk a little bit, you mentioned it just then, the student advisory. Now, I noticed that we've had parents ask that things in the news, they talk about a student advisory and a teacher advisory. Talk a little bit about those committees, if you don't mind.
Well, it's important in a district our size to make sure we're getting feedback from as many different groups as possible. So we have different advisory groups. We have two that are regular right now, student advisory that meets quarterly, and a teacher advisory that meets monthly. The student advisory are students selected by their principal to come in and we talk about different issues. Our teacher advisory is a monthly meeting made up of the school improvement chairs from each school. And they'll send in questions ahead of time, and we will answer those questions, much like we do here, where they'll send in questions. We have, at various times in the past, had a parent communications committee, and that committee will be coming back. We brought it in 2 years ago to look at our communication policies. So it's time to bring that back, see if those policies are working, and are there some things that we can change there. We've also done in the past a business advisory in conjunction with the chamber. And so that's one we'll probably bring back as we head down the road a little bit. So there are a number of different ways. This show is one of the ways we try to get feedback from folks outside of the school system and get questions answered.
Absolutely, it kind of gives you the perspective from everyone and kind of field problems maybe before they occur.
That's our hope.
That's good. Okay, well, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined with Assistant Superintendent Dr. LaShawn Smith. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Start your day with New Hanover County Schools, the morning show. This Rise and Shine program will put a smile on your face and a spring in your step. Best of all, you'll start the day a little smarter, knowing more about our district leaders and teachers, discovering new frontiers in science and technology, and getting the latest school news from across the district. New Hanover County Schools, the morning show, educating all viewers to achieve today and tomorrow in a global community. Only on this channel.
Welcome back to UpFront with the Superintendent. New Hanover County Schools works hard to make sure that every student is treated equally at school. Joining us to discuss equity in our school system is Dr. LaShawn Smith, Assistant Superintendent of Instruction and Academic Accountability. Welcome, Dr. Smith.
Thank you.
We're so glad to have you with us today. Now, I know you have a big title, and most of the folks that come on here have a long title. So can you kind of explain to our parents what you do in particular for the school system, and then launch into why are you joining us today?
Okay, glad to. So what I typically tell people is all things teaching and learning in the district fall under my responsibilities. I'm in charge of instruction, in charge of curriculum, also in charge of testing for the district, and within that we provide early childhood services. All of our secondary schools, our elementary schools, our services designed for our academically gifted children. So there's quite a bit.
That's very expansive.
Yes.
That covers a lot.
Yes, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about the work of our district around equity and access. We have an equity team for the district that's been meeting I'd say a little bit less than a year. We did start meeting last year, and with that team, we want to make sure that all students in the district have equal access to the opportunities that are available. As you know, we are a pretty unique district in terms of all the opportunities that we make available to students. and we want to make sure that there's equity in that access.
Absolutely. And that's for education or just all services in general?
So specifically, the equity team is focused on academic services, but that doesn't mean that our work won't lend itself to the broader form. Okay. So we, again, want to make sure that every child has the opportunity to participate and work to their highest level of potential.
And what brought this forward, that we needed an equity team or this needed to be specifically addressed? Is this just something that our district has established, or is it a growing trend nationwide?
So I wouldn't say that there's any one specific thing, but there have been many conversations over the years about equity. And I think a lot of times people confuse equity and equality, and equity really is about supporting children in the way that they need to be supported so that they can take advantage of the opportunities that are available. But again, New Hanover is not alone in its work. This is something that is a part of probably every conversation I have when I'm meeting with other leaders across the state. This is also something that becomes very apparent to us when we look at our outcomes as a district. We want to make sure, again, that every child is working up to their potential, and we believe that ensuring greater access and ensuring equity will allow that to occur.
So how does the equity team work in our county to make sure that that is happening?
So for our team, we're a little bit more than an advisory group. There are about 21 members at this point, and
it's a very large group.
Yes, and I apologize, I'm not going to be able to name all of them individually, but we do have the director of secondary education, along with counselors, members from our student support division on this team. We have our lead social worker for the district. We also have our behavior specialist for the district. We have teachers, just a myriad of folks from different roles across the district who sit down and have this conversation. Very recently, we participated, I think there were about 20 of us that were able to be a part of this, in implicit bias training, because we felt that that was a need for the district. And from that training that we received, we're meeting and providing feedback, and we're designing training for all of our principals in the district as well.
Can you go through that? Because that's kind of a mouthful, implicit bias training. What does that mean in just layman's language?
Yes. So all of us hold biases, and many of those biases are things that we do very subconsciously. And so within the training, it helps you to recognize when those biases are having a negative response or a negative impact on someone or in a decision that we're making. So in essence, seeing someone based upon what a stereotype might be, and then reacting in a negative way upon that stereotype. So having that increased level of awareness makes it less likely that we would respond in a negative way.
Absolutely. So then do you have special training to work towards having administration and faculty recognize that implicit bias? How does that work then?
Yes, for us, the first step really was about awareness, increasing the level of awareness. And so for principals, when they receive their training, it will be about putting together a plan to ensure that implicit bias does not negatively impact children in their building or the interactions that they may have with other folks. So it's not a one-time event. It is definitely something that we work toward. But again, it begins with awareness.
Absolutely. So is the training given to administrators and then they work within their school, or is the equity team looking at doing professional development for faculty as well on a district-wide basis?
So our plan would be to be able to bring this implicit bias training to all. There will be principals launching and leading this within their school, but ultimately the district being able to provide this to all teachers. Also looking at increasing our cultural competence, making sure that we're aware of the different cultures of the folks that are in our schools, and ensuring that our curriculums are responsive to them as well. So all of that is work that the equity team is looking at, planning for, and having conversations around.
Now, I know you said you work with testing as well, and I know there was some discussion at one time, it's been a while, that they were actually trying to do this within testing limits, that some of the questions given students were not considering their cultural background and they were difficult to answer. Do you know anything if that's being considered, or that would be, I guess, a statewide question?
So that has not been a part of our conversations at this point, but what I would say is I know that we are, as a part of the training that we're promoting, we'll be having conversations with principals to have conversations with their teachers, at the very least for classroom assessments, right, to make sure that we're not placing students at a disadvantage because of verbiage that we're using that may not be common to them, right, that may place them at a disadvantage just simply because they come from a different culture. Right. So we know that we can't eliminate all of that, but at least increasing awareness and being sensitive. But again, we've not had those conversations, but I know that that is something that will be forthcoming as we continue this work.
Absolutely, because testing is so vital in the way that schools are graded and
yes, and
structured. So with teachers teaching, do principals have a supervisory role on how teachers teach to be sure that they are being equitable to their students?
Well, within North Carolina, we have our North Carolina standards, and then from that, districts develop their curriculum. In New Hanover, teachers and principals have a lot of autonomy for the development of the curriculum at their schools. In most schools, principals do require teachers to submit lesson plans, and principals will review those lesson plans. Also, principals are in classrooms daily, observing teachers, having conversations with teachers, and then within teachers' PLCs, which stands for Professional Learning Communities, teachers have conversations about the materials that they choose to use as a part of a lesson and to instruct students. So there are a lot of different staggered steps along the way in which principals have inputs, teachers still have autonomy, but there's the opportunity for feedback as well.
So will the equity team be meeting on a regular basis? Is this an ongoing process you feel that will continue?
Yes, we do. We actually have a meeting this Friday, and part of the agenda will be to talk about our recent implicit bias training and to provide some feedback to our presenter to make sure that when we present this to principals, it is exactly what we would like for it to be as a part of that presentation. And so we're looking forward to putting together that feedback. Also, we've had excuse me, several team members who have attended statewide events. Excellent. And so we will be talking about their feedback from their attendance at these statewide events around equity. And then just today, we met with the members of the team, met with the Superintendent Student Advisory Group around equity and access. And it was a very enlightening conversation. We had representatives, I think, from all of our high schools, traditional and non-traditional, and they offered us some insightful information about things that we should consider. So we're going to be taking back the feedback from students, sharing that with the team, and then formulating some next steps.
That's a lot of amazing information. It's good for parents to know what goes on behind the scenes and all the work that's put in to be sure that our students feel comfortable and have the greatest opportunity for success. Now, is there anything as we wrap up today you'd like for parents to know if they need more information about the equity team? Do they just contact you, or do they need to check with their own school? How would you like to wrap up for us?
So if parents have questions or suggestions, they're more than willing to, we'd love to have the opportunity. They can contact me directly, and I can make sure that I funnel that information to members of our team for us to consider as a part of that conversation. And then probably as a takeaway, just for folks to know that equity is extremely important in our district. We want to work to make sure that every child is successful in our schools. And so the work of the equity team is around that. It's about increasing opportunity so that everyone works up to their potential.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Smith. I appreciate you coming today and explaining the equity team to us and giving this information to our parents.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks. Now don't go away. When we return, we have a few more topics to discuss with Dr. Markley. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Your School News, covering news that matters for parents, guardians, and greater New Hanover County. Featuring emerging trends in learning.
Organizing a classroom into workstations is fast becoming one of the newest methods in teaching.
Topical education issues from across the county.
You're going to see a priority on a lot of the issues that were a priority for Hanover County are a priority statewide.
And news on K-12 education issues affecting our community and state.
The thing that I'm trying to stress as I go across the state is we need to give schools flexibility. Flexibility to innovate, like right here in this traditional public school, this magnet school.
Your School News brings viewers more than 8 hours of school news and information so you know what's happening in the district, what students are learning, how the school system operates, and beyond. Your School News, only on this channel.
Welcome back for our final segment here on Upfront with the Superintendent. And Dr. Markley is with us to answer a few more questions and cover a couple of topics. Welcome back, Dr. Markley.
Good to be.
Anything you would like to add with regard to the Equity Committee or Equity Team?
I would just like to thank LaShawn for Dr. Smith for taking up this work. It is not easy work. There's some difficult but crucial conversations that are coming about because of that.
Excellent. Well, something that's very exciting that I wanted you to cover. Just recently, the Board of Education awarded some teaching scholarships to some worthy students here in our county. Kind of go over that because at one point the state was doing this and now they've stopped and we've kind of taken up the charge.
Well, there used to be a program called Teaching Fellows, which was open to some of the brightest students across the state. When that program was dissolved by the legislature, our county and county commissioners stepped up and funded 4 teaching scholarships for students with the understanding that they would come back and work for us when they're done. And we would pay the cost for the 4 years of college. We're now done this for 4 years. We're about to have our first graduates come back to us next year. We are excited about that. We just selected the 4 newest ones, so check out our website and see who those incredible young people are. Heading into next year, if you're interested, make sure you apply. The state has brought back teaching fellows, but in a limited capacity for some of the hard-to-fill areas. We're looking at our budget this year, and we're looking at changing some of our stipends or for our special ed folks, because that's an area that's hard to fill. So we'll probably increase our supplement for those teachers and looking at other areas heading into the future. Teaching is a great career, and we encourage anyone who wants to be a teacher to consider coming and hanging out with us for a while.
That's excellent, and it's great to keep our students coming back home.
Well,
and
if they
staying in our community.
If they grew up here, they're more likely to stay here.
Excellent. Well, that's exciting to know we have new ones coming back to start this program next year.
Yep.
So, one thing I also wanted to cover, this was a parent question. If we have new parents moving into the district, what is the best way for them to discover what district of school they go to? I imagine when they're buying houses or moving in, they get pretty keen on where they're going to be. But where do they go? Do they need to go to the school system office or directly to the school to get things going for their students?
Sure. If you're moving to the district and you don't know what your district school is, go to our website. There are maps that'll help you find that. It's under the parent tab on our homepage, and it'll tell you what street, if you know your street, or you're going to go to school. Then go to the school and have a conversation with the folks at the school. Now, if you're moving in the summertime, don't wait till the first day of school to do that. If you come in on the first day of school, it's going to be a little hectic. So try to come in a week to 2 weeks before school starts, introduce yourself, and begin that registration process, because there's a lot of paperwork sometimes, that, especially if you're coming from out of district or out of state, to get that student enrolled in school.
And I know there are some considerations for students that may not speak English. Are there any special steps they need to take or considerations about where to go to school?
Now, we take students from, right now we have almost 40 languages spoken in our school. We have liaisons that will work with parents who, if English is not their first language, to help them with that enrollment process. But that goes back to coming in early so we can have those folks in place when you come in to help you do that registration process.
Especially for the younger ones.
Especially for the younger
to
ones.
Get that separation anxiety for parents and students on a normal basis is difficult, but especially if it's a strange place.
It's never a fun, it's always an interesting day, the first day of school, when that kindergartner is separated from mom for the first time. Although I think the mom cries sometimes more than the kindergartner does.
That may happen, I believe. Speaking of that, we have already got the schedule out for open houses. Now, kind of give an overview for those that are brand new, what the open houses entail.
Every year we set dates for elementary, middle, and high school open houses, and they're on different days. The times may vary by the school, but the day won't change. Where you can go in, maybe get a copy of your kid's schedule, see what's going on in the school, meet the new teachers, and those are posted on our website. They'll also be posted on the individual school websites as you if you're looking at that spot as well. But it's a great opportunity to get into the school before that first day and relieve some of that anxiety, especially if it's a school that's going to be new to that child.
Absolutely. It's so hard to believe that we're getting that close to the end of the school year, but it just...
Spring is here. We're heading into what pretty soon to be the fourth quarter. We'll start EOC testing here, and then we'll start gearing up for next year.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up today, is there anything else you'd like to share with parents and viewers before we end?
I would just tell parents, especially if you're new to the district, you've come to a great place. We have 44 phenomenal schools. They are a wide variety of schools, and at the high school level, we offer an incredible amount of choice. We're also in that registration process right now for next year. So if you're interested in our magnet schools, check out our website. If you're interested in one of our specialty schools, do that as well. We can find a program that will fit the needs of your child.
Thanks so much, Dr. Markley.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up this edition of UpFront. On behalf of Dr. Markley and the staff here at NHCS TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next month for another edition of UpFront with the Superintendent.